Having accepted the invitation to do Mr. Roach's eulogy, a close friend who had made the suggestion texted me saying, "Be nicer. That was we principal, and we give him enough stress." Well, we do have good stress and bad stress, and I feel that the outcome, once beneficial to all, would have been generated by good stress. Mr. Roach had good stress at Cape Anglican School when he was principal there. But one bad stress I recall was when he had terminated a staff meeting abruptly after much crosstalk with me when I ignored his ruling that I should take my seat. Now, I often experienced dire consequences with my ebullience when my ebullience was misunderstood. But Mr. Roach and I, both Sagittarians for whatever that may portend, worked exceedingly well. Whenever he was going to be off the compound for a prolonged period, having informed the vice principal, he would come to my class with the suggestion that I keep my eyes open in his absence. I was a special reserve police officer at that time. Mr. Roach started his illustrious career in education in the 50s, and its pinnacle was in 1994 when he retired as a schools supervisor in the Port of Spain and Environs Education District. Both Mr. Roach and his brother Conrad, who later became a senior magistrate, would ride their bicycles as young teachers from home in Aruca to the Tacarigua EC School, now known as St. Mary's Anglican Primary School. And that name change has always been a sore point with some of us. Why did the church people strip the community name, attachment, and its ownership from their schools? I'll share this with you. Decades ago, a retired principal told me that the true name for Cape Anglican should have been St. Gill EC, as the school was located in a little village called St. Gill in Cape. There used to be a sign marked St. Gill Hall for the trains at the corner of Evans Street and St. Augustine Circular Road in the vicinity where a UE car park is located. But that aside, dates and names are difficult to come by with reference to Mr. Roach, as many of his peers and older relatives with the requisite information would have predeceased him. Mr. Roach received a scholarship to attend the Government Teachers Training College, and after graduating, he returned to Tacarigua EC. He was there for a few years before receiving another scholarship to the Eastern Caribbean Institute of Agriculture and Forestry at Centeno, where he earned his diploma in agriculture. He was eventually posted to the Five River Junior Secondary School as an agri-science teacher. His entry into school administration began at the Grand Riviere Anglican School up in Toko. From there, he was appointed principal of Cape Anglican School, which undoubtedly would have been his halcyon days in his vocation of education. Many groundbreaking events happened under his tenure there. The imminent arrival of Mr. Roach to assume leadership in September 1978 was made known to us by the retiring principal, Mr. George Murray, my father, who told the staff he knew him well, as both Mr. Roach's wife, Edna Roach, and his wife, Sylvia Murray, my mother, taught together at Tunapuna EC. But back to Mr. Roach, as this is his last hurrah. Mr. Roach met a well-oiled unit at Crib Anglican, perhaps I should say a decently well-alcoholized unit among his male staffers who played hard, worked hard, and hardly drunk until our Thursday session by Kenny's Cloud 9 in Crib. Kenny said he got his best weekly sales on a Thursday because patrons were attracted by the vigorous debate coming from teach and them tables. All the perspectives, planning, and proposals for enhancing and elevating Crib Anglican were distilled there and eventually implemented at school. Nothing like rum talk for us. Mr. Roach used to say, "You fellas are something else, yes?" It was said both to congratulate or chide us as the situation would warrant. Under Mr. Roach's headship, Bishop Emeritus Reverend Clive Abdullah, when he came to open and bless the Evelyn Hordat Library at the school, said he considered Crib Anglican the best performing Anglican primary school in the diocese. Primarily because we were innovative, self-reliant, high achievers, and we got things fixed by having on the staff an unassuming, talented, competent man for all seasons with vast technical and construction skills. Another of Mr. Roach's staff members pioneered the common interest pull-out practice test in the Express that all newspapers subsequently adopted. We had opened a school canteen, and after much hassling with the authorities about the appalling standards of the breakfast shed lunches that were dropped off at the school, we got the concession for the school to prepare school lunches in the canteen. Again, under Mr. Roach's watch, when the school purchased its first photocopier, a big deal at the time, as all primary school used the messy Roneo duplicator, the agents told us we were the first primary school in the country to make such a purchase. I recall 5 staff members, myself included, from time to time had sought Mr. Roach's experience and guidance in preparing for promotion interviews. He would simulate in his porch what happens in a teaching service commission interview for principals, with us treating it as the real deal. All kudos to Mr. Roach, as we were successful in being appointed principals. Part of Mr. Roach's tenure at Crib Anglican fell during those 7 glorious years of the Crib Anglican PTA Old Mass competition and dance, the school's blockbuster income earner that provided the funding for all major and minor school projects. Mr. Roach blended well with the vibes of the school of doing something for yourself or suffer, and he led us in keeping the Crib Anglican colors flying high. We are certain when Mr. Roach was interviewed by the Teaching Service Commission to be elevated to school supervision, they would have been impressed by his staff members' initiatives and energy, and by what Crib Anglican would have achieved under his leadership. We acclaim, applaud, and accredit you, Mr. Roach, for the wonderfully productive association we have had with you at Crib Anglican. You were resolute when necessary, amiable, accommodating, encouraging, and you had allowed us all to grow professionally and with a sense of fulfillment. At times, you could be unfettered, pointed, and poignant in your choice of words when making any point you were strong on. You have remained easily accessible to many of your former staff members and others who today mourn your passing. And your personal accessibility to NLCB booths was also remarkably easily achieved. We express our heartfelt condolences to your friends and relatives, especially your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. We all pray that you rest in eternal peace, Mr. Roach. Thank you.
A pleasant afternoon to all. To those who have never met before, I am Charmaine White Clark, better known as Daddy's Toko daughter. Mr. Roach was my foster father. To him and all his friends and colleagues, I was his real daughter. He introduced me to everyone as his Toko daughter, and everyone believed and had no doubt in their minds because of the resemblance and the distinguished nose spread. I was born in July 1975, and Mr. Roach came to Grand Riviere Anglican in September 1975 to assume the position of principal. So you can do the maths there. He is the person I knew and grew with as my daddy. He would always remind me that at a tender age, in his voice, "Daddy, I want to go to school." And therefore, my school journey began at age 3. Daily, he would take me to school with him to do whatever you do in school at that time. He left a lasting impression in my education journey and also in the education sector at Grand Riviere Anglican and environs. Everyone knew Mr. Roach. Together with his deceased wife, Miss Edna, they welcomed me into their home after my secondary education to proceed on to tertiary education. Daddy was a very strict, nonsense person. So you can only imagine the many times our lines crossed while living there. But due to his diligence as a father, I am the person who I am today. Daddy would grammatically correct me or anyone else in the middle of a sentence while you're talking to him. He had a great command of the English language, while I had a great command of the Toko local language. His love for education was unearthing. It's all he lived and encouraged everyone to do in their life's journey and to always reach for the stars. He also loved giving his service to God as a lay minister in this very church and to also other parishes. He loved to cook. Pork was nice. And was well known as the one and only person to do the barbecue at all the church country fair, the church country fair. He's one of the persons I give gratitude to for my educational journey and accomplishments. He was so proud when I told him of all my accomplishments, especially when I told him I'm now an acting vice principal. He touched the sky. His next question though was, what is the salary you're making now? And remember, when you always used to ball, you like money, and I told you you need to study. And when you study and you get your education, you could ask for all the money you want. Those were his words at all time. And then he would say, when I retired as a school supervisor, my money was even close to that. You see how much money you're getting now? You can buy plenty things for me now. Mr. Roach also had a great sense of humor, while he liked to drink. And he also loved God's female creation. He would admire them and drew my attention to them continually while we were on our driving escapades. He loved them. He loved his family, his children, his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren. Although they did not always see eye to eye on everything, because as you know, it's his way or the highway. He always made it known in a few colorful words when he have to correct you, when you don't listen. but it was all in love. He is not, in the evening, he is not so well days as Sonia was taking care of him and Carol. He would jokingly say, it's a good thing I'm not a miserable person, yes? Which we would all laugh because we know that wasn't true. All right? And Daddy, as I've known him all my life, will be truly missed. But in comfort, he lived a fun-filled, memorable, enjoyable life. We love and we will miss him dearly. God bless. Rest in eternal peace, Daddy. Thank you.
The reading is taken from Wisdom, chapter 3, verses 1 to 5 and verse 9. But the souls of the righteous are in the hand of God, and no torment will ever touch them. In the eyes of the foolish, they seemed to have died, and their departure was thought to be a disaster, and their going from us to be their destruction. But they are at peace. For though in the sight of others they were punished, their hope is full of immortality. Having been disciplined a little, they will receive great good, because God tested them and found them worthy of himself. Those who trust in him will understand truth, and the faithful will abide with him in love, because grace and mercy are upon his holy ones, and he watches over his elect. The word of the Lord.
The second reading is taken from 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 13 to 18. But we do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about those who have died, so that you may not grieve as others do who have no hope. For since we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so, through Jesus, God will bring with him those who have died. For this we declare to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord, and by no means precede those who have died. For the Lord himself, with a cry of command, with the archangel's call, and with the sound of God's trumpet, will descend from heaven, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Thus, we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up in the clouds together with them to meet the Lord in the air. And so we will be with the Lord forever. Therefore, encourage one another with these words. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. We have come, my brothers and sisters in Christ, to celebrate a life. To celebrate a life that was, at least in part, presented to us by the two persons who eulogized our brother Clive. And I take this opportunity, in the midst of recognizing that we are really celebrating a life, but nevertheless to recognize that there's always sadness in times like these, when a loved one who made such an impact on the lives of so many, when such a one as Clive was passes away, there's always that sense of sadness, a sense of loss. So I want to take this opportunity to express on my own behalf, personal behalf, my family, and on behalf of the wider St. Mary's family parish, and I dare say on behalf of the wider Anglican community, whom he served as a teacher in several places. So I want to express our sympathy to all these persons who today feel that sense of loss.